Hey, good afternoon. How you doing? It's Financial Freedom Fridays. Gus Tucker here. Hope you're having a great July so far. And I'm in the Chicago area, and it's been rain all week. I need some sunshine. I don't know about you. So all you folks in the sunshiny states, God bless you. So it's good to see everybody. And a couple things. I am thinking about guests who could come on here who have great things to share. I'd like to know what areas that you would like people to speak to, so I can, if I don't have them in my sphere of influence, I can track them down and get the right people on here for you to hear from. So if you can hit us up with comments about, hey, I'd like to hear about this or hear about that, or subjects about this or topics about that. So I want to start bringing more guests onto the show that you can get exposed to other folks. That's number one. Number two, feedback. Love to get feedback from you on what your experience has been so far. Okay, so we can continue to improve and get better, so that you will share and like and turn other people on to the content that we're talking about here on blackdoctor.org. And blackdoctor.org is committed to bringing you the best in healthcare and healthcare related topics so you can live your best life. Okay, so with that in mind, let's get going, and some things I'd like to chat with you about. And I'm sharing with you things that I'm thinking about, that I'm going through, that I think would be helpful because they're helping me. Okay, and it's been said that the two most important days in your life are the day you're born. That's kind of important, right? The day you're born. And hey, Les Marie, how you doing? Good to have you in Florida. With your sunny self. Okay. Um, and yeah, I know it's been hot down there because y'all had rain too. A friend of mine in Tampa, he was getting rained on last night. And one is the day you were born, and two is the day you find out why. And that's what we're going to be talking about. And I've launched a coaching and training program around what we're going to be talking about a little bit today, because it's very, very important. And I believe it's the things I've been talking about is what God's called me to do. Okay. And the reason I'm doing this is what it says up here: to support as many Black Americans and African Americans. Why? You'll see why in a second. With the practical tools and understand to gain financial independence and sustain it for multiple generations. Yeah, blessed are the disciplined, for they shall inherit the earth. It says, blessed are the meek, but meekness is discipline, is strength under discipline. Like, how you have a horse that's wild and just runs wild? It's not very much good to a rider. So that horse has to learn meekness, which is to take that same power but operate under the strength and direction of the rider, and then the two of them together can make great things happen. God wants us to be meek under him, so he can create great things to us. So that's who's going to inherit the earth. So I want you to think about these things real quick, because I'm reading a couple books right now, and I'm reading them in order. The first book is called Slavery by Another Name. And, a lot of things, I don't know about you. Hey, Ursula, I don't know about you, but there are a lot of things I don't know. And the older I get, the more I figure out, man, you don't know very much. Okay. So after the Emancipation Proclamation, we all know about, and maybe we don't, how Black folks were treated in the United States. Now, I don't want to harp on this, but I want to deal with the realities of it so we can work through it. All right? Because if we don't learn from history, we'll repeat it. Yes? Yes. In our own personal life, in our collective life as well. So when Black folks are freed, so to speak, Free to do what? With what? You've been enslaved for X number of years, hundreds of years, and what do you own? Nothing. So how are you supposed to turn that into like something productive? There's got to be an on-ramp to productivity. You've been productive because you built the economy of the nation that you live in. So it's obvious you've been productive. And the folks you work for, they don't even know how to do what you know how to do. And they're freaking out because now you're free. And how they gonna get done what they used to get done to make their living before without you? Man, it was kind of a crazy time as they're transitioning from chattel slavery to freedom. Well, certain folks didn't really want to go through that transition, so they passed laws so they could basically re-enslave Black people under the law through certain criminal laws and trumped up charges. Folks were imprisoned and literally sold or leased to corporations who would essentially pay their fines and fees for their essentially slave labor. So I want you to think about this for a little bit. That we need a strategy for how we can work together to develop a sustainable economy. So get this, in 1860, when Black folks were free, we owned about 0.3% of the wealth in America. 0.3%, not even 1%. And we were well above 1% of the population because we outnumbered white folks in the areas we were in. Okay? So 160 years later, we still continue to control less than 3% of the US wealth. What does that mean? Think about this. Every Black person you see, when you go outside today, tomorrow, that $195,000 per person is the wealth that Black folks are behind white folks. In terms of the wealth that they have access to and control. That's if we just had our percentage of the population. We had that in wealth. It'd be $195,000 for every man, woman, or child that's Black, African American, in America today. How does that make you feel? Well, it makes you feel like we got some catching up to do. So guess how we're not going to catch up? We're not going to catch up by having a job. Why do I say that? When I got out of college, undergrad in 1981, yes, the world was alive in 1981. My first job, I made $23,000 in 1981. By 1983, I was making $50,000. Okay? So if you got a pencil or something, I'm write down 50,000. Write down 50,000, 1983 and 50,000. Okay. Now we've talked about this before, but do you know the rule of 72? The rule of 72. Here's what the rule of 72 means. If you take the number 72 and divide it by an interest rate or an inflation rate, it'll tell you how quickly the number will double. A number will double. If that's the interest rate you're using to measure the growth of something, it'll double in that many years. So let's say inflation is 3%. Now we know it's not 3%. It ain't been 3%. But we're going to use 3% just to be very conservative. Okay? Very conservative. So 3 goes into 72 how many times? 24 times. So if I was making 50,000 in 1983, with 3% inflation, how much would I need to be making today to make the same amount of money? So it's every 24 years it doubles, right? So 1983 plus 24 is 2007. So in 2007, 100 grand would have been the same as 50 grand in 1983. Okay? Now we're in 2023, right? It's plus 16 years. So 16 is what percentage of 24? Basically 75%. So if you take another 2/3 of 100, how much is that? 75. Add that to it. So check this out, guys. Check this out. Check this out. So that's basically 2.75 times. So let me get a calculator out. I got one around here somewhere. Here it is. If I take 175 divided by 50, it's 3.5 times. 3.5x. Let's go back just 2 years and look at that 23. Let's take that 23 times. That'd be 80,000. So let me ask you a question. Is the average starting salary for folks right now in America about 80,000? That's what it would need to be to keep up with inflation. But here's what it is. If you go right on Google and you Google median per capita income in the United States. In other words, what's the most common income for a person in the United States right now? You're going to come up with like 35, 36,000. That's half of what it should be. So let me ask you a question. Have we been more productive as an economy since 1981? Have we learned anything? Have we got more effective, more efficient ways of doing things since 1981? Has technology increased or improved across different industries? Yeah. Has it gotten cheaper to do some things? Oh, yeah. So where'd all that money go that we made? Huh? The economy's gotten bigger. If you look at our gross domestic product, gross national product in 1981 versus today, you'll see, I haven't looked at the number, but I'm sure it's huge. Who kept all the money? The business owner. That's why they're rich and wealthy. What did we get? If you're an employee, you got half. You're getting half of what you should have just to maintain even. So if you needed 80K to be even and you got 36, what's the average person? 50% behind what they need to be. That's why it takes two jobs to barely make it. Because two people are making what one person was making 40 years ago. Come on now. So how do you get out of that? How do you get out of that? What do you do? Suggestion. I've been harping on this. I've been harping on this. I've been harping on this. What you see is from where you sit. Perspective makes all the difference. Look, perspective comes from a couple places. One, it comes from the people you hang around. Who are you hanging around with? Are they in life where you want to be? Financially, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationally? Are they where you want to be? If they are, great. If they're not, why are you hanging out with them? So one is people. Our perspective is impacted by people. Number two is media. What do you watch on the media? It's fun to scroll through and see funny things on whatever it is, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, fan base. But if you spend all your time doing that, it'll wear you out. And people tend to only put their best life on those social media spots. Yes, would you agree? So I really encourage you to manage that intake of media or pretty much cut it out. I know we're I know we have times per week, my wife and I, when we're gonna watch our shows, so to speak. But for the most part, no media. So one, your perspective comes from who you hang around, and two, the media, and then three, What are the thoughts banging around in your head? Are they tend to be positive? Do they tend to be negative? Do they tend to uplift you? Or do they tend to put you down? Sometimes our worst enemies, who? Ourselves. Can I ask you a question? I'm going to ask it anyway. I'm just trying to be nice. If you walk down the street in whatever city you live in, the busiest street there is, and you just hauled off and hit yourself in the face every couple of steps, you walk, bam, punch yourself in the face. Then you walk a few more steps, bam, put yourself in the face. Then you walk a couple more steps, then you hit yourself with both fists in the face. What would people think about you? They'd start calling somebody to rescue you from yourself. So do we need to rescue you from the thoughts you have about yourself? I'm just saying. People we hang around, media, thoughts you have yourself. What's this got to do with income? Only everything. Only everything. Because you have, in a sense, a financial thermostat and a lifestyle thermostat inside of you. And you'll tend not to operate above what you think of yourself. And see, what you think of me is a personal matter. I don't need to know anything about it. You can keep that to yourself. Now, ask about the show and what I'm doing and saying and what your thoughts are. I want to hear about that. But you know, say about me. You understand what I'm saying? There's a difference. So, that's just some stuff about me. But this is one of the projects I'm working on to help bring wealth back to Black folks. Stay tuned. We're launching a Black-owned stock exchange by the end of this year. It's called Dream Exchange. Well, check it out. DREAMEX.com. Check it out. And check out our song. It's an anthem. It's called Dream Again by Sarah Ikumu. She was Britain's Got Talent #2. She was a Golden Buzzer by Simon Cowell. She finished second. This girl can sing like for real. You got to go check out our anthem. It's by a guy named Mike Phillips. He's a world-class saxophonist. He's playing over in Carnegie Hall in New York right now. Or he did for Juneteenth. Okay, so check that out. Now, here's what I'm saying to you. I don't know what your spiritual heritage is, what you believe, and I'm not here to try to convince you to believe one thing or another. I can only talk to you from my perspective. Okay, because I want to share something with you. You go check these verses out, and then you think about it. And, let's have a conversation. Everybody's got a worldview, a way of seeing the world. Where are you sitting to view your life? My perspective is seeing life from God's perspective is the best and only vantage point. Why is that? Well, I heard this story put this way. You guys heard of Moses in the Bible? You guys heard of Moses? Okay. So Moses had an encounter with a burning bush, right? The bush was on fire, but it didn't burn up. So there's fire in the Bible that don't burn people, but it creates light and heat, but it don't burn nothing up. That's a miracle right there, right? And through this burning bush, God tells Moses to go tell Pharaoh, who is king. And kings back then, just so you get it, kings own everything, including the people. Everything's theirs. They literally own everything. And you only have something if the king allows you to have it. And the king can take it back anytime he wants to. That's why people are always either trying to play nice with the king or kill him. Okay. So he go tell Pharaoh, who is the king, to let his people go. And he's like, and Moses used to be in the king's court with the Pharaoh, but not this Pharaoh, the one before. Okay, y'all know about. And so Moses asked him a question. He says, "Who should I say sent me?" Here's what I want you to understand. And this is big in Chicago. If you go to talk to anybody in Chicago, they want to know who sent you. And with good reason. Because your authority comes from who sent you. Okay? When does a private have more clout than a sergeant? When he's on orders from a general. It isn't the lieutenant. It isn't the little, lieutenant who's a big deal. It's the fact that he has orders from the general that higher rank need to listen to. You feel me? So what God told Moses was, tell him I am that I am have sent you. What does that mean? I am meant the ever existing one, the one who's always been, the one who hung the moon and the stars, the one who created you. Tell him that I am sent you. And so you guys know the story, you know what happened. That's the same I am it's talking about right here. In Colossians, it talks about seeking what's at the right hand of God. Ephesians talks about how we're seated at the right hand of God. Galatians talks about how we were crucified with Christ. And the life we now live, we don't live on our own power, but through the power that Christ has put in us. Matthew 16:13 talks about how we can bind what's on earth. We can bind and loose things. In other words, if we bind it on earth, it's bound in heaven. If we loose it on earth, it's loosed in heaven. The heck does that mean? Here's what it means. If you have a relationship with God through Christ, you're sitting at the right hand of the Father right now. Wait a minute, I'm in my office in Des Plaines in Chicago. How am I at the right hand of God? It's a spiritual reality. That's a spiritual truth. And we're blessed with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places. But at the same time, you're down here on earth, and you and I both know you kind of screwed up in the head sometimes. But if you see that the right hand of God, you're perfect. But down here, not so much. So here's the process of transformation. God is working in us with his word and by his spirit to transform how we think, how we feel, and what we choose to line up with the spirit that's in us. That's consistent with that person sitting at the right hand of God. And he's changing us into that person every day if we'll work with him. And that's the perspective that God wants us to have. When we have that perspective, that's called seeking first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And then it says everything else will be added unto you. This passage right here. Why is that important? Because God's provision for you and I is based on us living out our God-given purpose every day. When God created man back in Genesis 1, he told him to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill the earth, subdue it, and take dominion over it. In other words, bend it so that it will serve you. That's what we're supposed to do. Not dominion over other people, but over the world that we live in. And all the needs were met. Adam and Eve didn't have a job. They owned everything under God. God has made us to be kings and priests, it says in the Bible. And it says that we will seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All these things will be added to you. What's all these things? All the things you need to live here on earth. I'm not saying you're going to be the wealthiest person in the world. But here's what I am saying. God is committed to providing for you. If you're seeking God and you're after his vision, you will get God's provision. What did Jesus tell his family? They were on a trip and they were looking for him. He said, didn't you know I need to be about my father's business? Jesus, as a young boy, had it right. That's what we're all supposed to be, about our father's business. And when we're doing that, our father will take care of us. How many of y'all got kids? How many of y'all got kids? I have 3 of them. They're adults now. But when they were growing up in your house, something happened. It happens to each kid different time, but something happens where all of a sudden they know more than you and they want to run your house, the one you're paying for. Did y'all have that experience? Or just me? So the conversation kind of goes like something like this. As long as you in this house, you're gonna run this by my rules. If not, you're free to go. I told my kids very early on. First of all, I ain't never had no kids before. I'm practicing on you. And when you have kids, I'll be better with them because I would have learned what not to do on you guys. The first thing I told them. Second thing I told them is that I am in no way interested in trying to run your life. I just want to raise you up so you can leave here and not come back. So you'll know how to make decisions so you ain't got to come back here no more. Because I want to be alone with your mom. That's how it was when y'all got here. We had lots of fun back then. And my kids like, is dad trying to get rid of us? Yes. So you wasn't funding no craziness from your kids, right? If they come and they want to act crazy, were you writing checks for that? Well, guess what? God didn't write checks for your foolishness either. And then we want to pray and ask him for this, that, and the other. And then we one more time. If you one more time, God, one more time about you just going, you want to do it one? No. Stop it. So our identity is at the right hand of the Father. And it's all the things that he says. And what he wants you to know, he's got goals for you based on that identity and that person he's made you. Success is built into your spiritual and physical DNA. You were created to be successful because of who you belong to. So our first key thing that we got to figure out is who we are and whose we are. Because your provision as a person is tied to that. It's not tied to the economy. It's not tied to whether they pass affirmative action or not. It's not tied to anything except you understanding who God has made you and then walking in that purpose. Now, should you be lazy? No. Does that mean you shouldn't get an education? No. Does that mean you shouldn't start a business? No. You need to be, like it says, be fruitful and multiply. Take what's in you. How does a fruit multiply? It takes the seed that's in them, takes it out of them, puts it in the ground. It dies, breaks open, and creates the fruit that was inside them. You have seeds inside of you that are going to be your provision. You have to plant them out in the culture, in the world, and it will yield fruit by serving other people, and you will get the income from that. Whoa. So your income is based on your willingness to walk in God's purpose and to serve other people. If you'll do that, your needs will be met. You ain't got to worry about nothing. If you don't, get the fretting, get the worry. Okay? So we covered the first point. I didn't get to the other points. Our time is up. I didn't get to the other points. But I want to tell you about something we're doing in a couple of weeks, okay? I'm going to skip real fast. Boom, 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 boom. Well, I didn't put this on here good. I need to redo this slide. I didn't check it before I uploaded it. Thursday, July 27th. Put that on your calendar. Go to your calendar right now. Put free estate planning seminar. Man, this might be the last time it's free. I think we're gonna start charging because people don't appreciate stuff that's free, do they? Do you? We charge them $50 to show up. Man, I paid my $50. I'm gonna show up. So it's on Thursday, July 27th, 2023. It's at 7 o'clock Central. That's where I'm at, 8 o'clock Eastern. It lasts about 30, 45 minutes, depending on how many questions people have. Okay. You need to do this and learn why everybody over 18 ought to have an estate plan. Everybody over 18 years old ought to have one. We'll discuss why and what it looks like. And we've got the best rates and availability for it that you can find anywhere. Okay. So please take advantage of that. And it says a good man leaves inheritance to his children's children. How? And the wealth is not just money, but it's also other things. Okay. So with that, I'm gonna say bye till next week, and we'll pick up where we left off, and we'll finish that up. Okay. You got it?